Jamie Zachary here from Solex Thermal Science. We are back for another episode of The Exchange, and we're going to talk all things metal casting today. I have brought in two very special guests. One you're very familiar with. His name is Scott Harris. He's the Regional Director of Americas here at Solex. And Will Tinker. Will Tinker is the president of Tinker Omega. And Will, I really want to thank you for giving us some of your time today.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Now, Will, what's going on? You guys are based down there in Ohio. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
Okay, Tinker Omega is a equipment and systems provider to the metal casting industry. We focus primarily on chemically bonded sand processing, and we are involved with basically a silo-to-silo type of environment, because we can help the customer anywhere from when the sand comes out of the silo to where it goes back into the silo.
And Scott, let's remind people, I mentioned that you're Regional Director of Americas, but let's remind people what you do here at Solex.
Yeah, so I'm basically responsible for equipment sales for the Americas, which covers many different applications, but in particular here, it's around chemical no-bake sand conditioning. So we heat and sometimes cool sand to keep it in a certain range, and then Will's equipment takes that conditioned sand and does marvelous things with it to make accurate castings.
Now, by the time this airs, we will be hopefully a couple days or maybe a week or so out from Cast Expo 2022, which is hosted by the American Foundry Society. And both Solex and Tinker Omega will be there.
Yeah, we're going to have booth 1315, and it will be we'll have an example of our robotic mold milling process, and we will have a display with three types of mixing equipment that are available to customers. We'll have an example of our control system for the mixers, which we'll show the PLC side of it, as well as the pumping system, the liquid addition side. We'll have a display for our secondary reclamation process, that the customers can use to further reclaim their sand and eliminate a waste stream. And then we'll also have a operating display for a chromite separation and recovery system, where we can take the chromite sand out of the silica sand and then process it to a very usable purity that they can put back into their cores and their molds.
And not too far away in booth 905, about an aisle over, will be Solex Thermal Science, and our guy on the ground is going to be Scott. Scott, give the people here today a little bit of a sneak peek on what they can expect at Solex's booth.
We have our own network, and customers have certain special interests around sand conditioning, and so this is where we come together, and it's a sort of a natural fit to the chemical mixing process for chemical no-bake sand systems, and that's where we kind of all got started with Tinker coming to us originally.
We have done thermal processing of sand as far as heating and cooling it at the mixer with our own fluid bed for forever, but we are limited in the size of a unit that we can produce. And so we had a project where we were bidding some rather large heat exchangers for heating and cooling the sand.
Oh, right. So that's how it all kind of came together. And our history with sand really started with the frac sand business, both heating up fracturing sand, and then after they coat it, cooling it down. And then, the industry, sand's everywhere, and people move from one sand application to another. And so we've had some cross-pollination between, applications. So we've had fracturing sand customers get into the foundry sand business, and they bring their history with us along with them. So we're starting to build some familiarity as well. sand in general, I'm hearing, Will, is getting more scarce. So there's interest for people to recycle their sand, and I understand that's something that you are helping customers with now. What do you hear about that?
The thing about a foundry is that if he could get his sand for free and he could throw it away for free, he'd never have the economic justification to reclaim it. And then as sand has gotten more expensive and availability of certain types has gotten more scarce, the need and the justification to reclaim it has gotten a lot stronger. And so we can help customers with the initial attrition process, secondary attrition to further clean the sand, or even with thermal reclamation to basically make the sand like new again.
And that's an economic case mostly. Has environmental brought any change to the business levels around that, or is it still primarily a cost decision?
It's still pretty much a cost position. I mean, everything has to be economically justifiable. I've got some customers in locations where sand is more difficult to get to their facility, so that adds into the cost. Thus, it further justifies the reclamation process.
What's happening I don't hear you talk too much about ceramic sand. There was some buzz about that the last time we were at Cast Expo. Has anything really changed there?
Ceramic sand is definitely in use in certain foundries, and it has to be treated with a different economic scale than with silica sand. Due to the expense of the ceramic sand, it's the justification for that secondary processing, be it secondary attrition or thermal, is much easier to justify, and it's more necessary, because if a foundry could operate on silica sand and he would have a 30% new sand addition, he would be buying 30% of his sand volume and he'd be throwing away 30% of the sand volume. And if that sand is $50 or $100 a ton, that is one cost. And so I have to justify the reclamation system on that cost of that 30%. But if that cost of that sand goes up 10, 15 fold per ton, then the justification for my equipment for that 30% of the sand is much more doable.
I'm interested to know, and this can go to either you, Will, or you, Scott, but what are some of the issues that customers are coming to you with today?
With us, they're coming to us with a need to improve productivity, to improve efficiency, maybe to replace an older, inefficient machine with a newer, more automated unit. And so it's a blend of improving process or installing a new process that will give them the benefits of the new technology.
There have been a few new processes coming out. We've been successful with in a V process, a vacuum type process for core making, and that's created some interesting different temperature conditions. We are starting now to hear a little bit about 3D printing, and those are sort of smaller applications, but I think this kind of had more traction in Europe. It's starting to, I'm hearing a few stories coming up, a few interested companies doing this. How are you finding it?
Basically, what's new, not necessarily an additive, but in traditional sand casting, is the ability to take the operator out of the day-to-day decisions of making a mold or a core, and so they can use a recipe system that's typically RFID, and that will identify the pattern, know how much sand to put in the pattern, know what catalyst to put in with it, know what force the compaction table should operate at. It can fill the mold in steps if there's an amount of handwork that needs to be done in between the molding process. And so it takes the decisions away from the operator as to which resin level to use, when to turn the mixer off, what catalyst to use, when to start and stop the compaction table. So the variables that go into making that mold on a day-to-day basis can be minimized with an upgrade in the process control.
Well, when you quote a system, what happens with the ROI decision? Are you able to prove to them that you'll get this much percentage of casting quality improvement or core quality improvement, and then do they take that and equate that to a dollar savings and then therefore are able to justify the investment? How does that all work?
We don't go in and guarantee an ROI to a customer in terms of the casting quality, but I can give them a guarantee on the accuracy of the resin addition on the sand, the amount of sand dispensed, and that sort of thing. So I can guarantee the controls that we provide, but I can't guarantee the ultimate process they've got.
What I've always tried to focus customers on is trying to identify what the root cause of some of the inclusions are in their castings, relate that to sand somehow, and then try and get them to admit to a certain scrap rate improvement as a result of all of this, which then you can kind of equate. And I get a mixed bag. These are confidential issues. Typically, I find I have to go to the industry, to like AFS, to try and get, what is the cost per pound of scrap, and try and relate that back. And then it's always a fun exercise getting customers to admit to a certain scrap rate and like this. So this is kind of how I imagine it, because we have two sides to it. We have this technical solution, and you've heard Will talk about there needs to be a commercial aspect to this to justify it. So.
Well, offline, you were saying the word resilience is the one that probably came up when we were chatting about this, but maybe add to that.
Foundries have dealt with challenges all along. The most recent prior to COVID was the silica ruling that they had to deal with. And so each one of them found a path their own way. The industry was found a way to deal with COVID and to continue operating.
Yeah, and if I have to throw something in there, I mean, it's really highlighted the significance and the excitement, I guess, around this, face-to-face show. I mean, yes, it's been 3 years, but this is an opportunity to see some people we haven't seen for a while. Maybe we took that for granted before.
I think we all did, and it's. Yeah, I've been to a couple of recent events, and it's wonderful to see people face to face again.
Yeah, Scott, this will be your first show back. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Virtual shows just aren't quite the same. Don't have quite the same impact, and so we're looking forward to reacquainting ourselves and hopefully meeting some new people.
Will, tell us or tell the audience where can people go leading up to Cast Expo to keep in touch with you guys?
Yeah, we're on both Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can find us at www.tinkeromega.com. You can email us at sales@tinkeromega.com, and by all means, come see us at booth 1315 in Columbus, Ohio.
And Scott, booth 905, that's where we're going to be?
Right, so be there in the flesh.
Well, as you jump on the I-70 East and head 45 minutes there over to Columbus, drive safe. We look forward to seeing you there. Again, thanks so much for giving us a bit of your time today.
Well, thanks for the invitation. It's been a great experience, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with me.